Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News. It's Monday here in Seoul and I'm Lee Ji-yoon. With this year's policy goals set, President Park Geun-hye is speeding up her office shakeup. She's expected to announce a partial reshuffle of her cabinet as early as today. Our presidential office correspondent Choi You-sun reports.
By carrying out a cabinet reshuffle since nominating a new prime minister last Friday, President Park Geun-hye likely hopes to regain public support for economic policies as she enters her third year in office. The president's approval ratings dropped to an all-time low of 30% following allegations of her aides abusing their power and disorder surrounding a document leak from the presidential office. The pending reshuffle, expected to come early this week, will most definitely include a new oceans minister. A ruling party lawmaker close to the president, Lee Ji-yoon, who once practiced maritime law, is widely talked about candidate as his current Busan mayor, Seo Byung-soo. The shakeup could also include the unification and transport ministers, both of whom enter the cabinet after President Park's inauguration. The president has repeatedly spoken about improving inter-Korean ties this year, the 70th anniversary of the division of the two Koreas, and looks set to add momentum to our unification preparation drive. The transport minister could be dismissed after the government was criticized for its investigation into the recent nut rage incident on a Korean Air flight. But the cabinet's economic team, led by Finance Minister Choi You-sun, will likely stay put to enforce the president's economic revitalization plan and public pension and labor reforms. As for the presidential chief of staff Kim Ki-chun, some speculate he could resign sooner than later, as both the cabinet and presidential office shakeups are expected to be completed by next month. Choi You-sun, ARIRANG News.
And during a meeting with her newly appointed secretaries and special advisors, President Park says she wants to break down barriers and increase communication within the presidential office. Referring to public anger over the government's revised tax policy, the president said all the secretaries should analyze policies and make clear of the presidential office's objectives to the public. She then urged her staff to ensure the revised policy doesn't cause the public any more grief than necessary. The president also says she would share the policies that she and her secretaries discuss with the public. Are the chances fading for inter-Korean talks? With about a month since South Korea made its proposal for inter-Korean talks, North Korea is warning the South to stop challenging the North on its efforts to improve inter-Korean relations. To tell us what's behind all this, here's our Park Ji-won.
North Korea is sending more mixed messages. The National Defense Commission on Sunday warned the South Korean government not to distort or criticize Pyongyang for its approach towards improved inter-Korean relations. It added South Korea could face severe consequences if it continues to challenge North Korea's forward-looking approach, which it said is aimed at strengthening ethnic ties in inter-Korean relations. Pyongyang also criticized the South for allowing civic groups to send anti-Pyongyang leaflets across the border and going ahead with an annual joint military exercise with the U.S. this spring. Pyongyang also characterized Seoul's proposals for dialogue and reunions for war-separate families as rhetoric lacking in sincerity. However, up until Saturday, North Korea's state-run Nominating newspaper has emphasized inter-Korean dialogue and negotiations. Earlier this week, the North has said, as this year marks the 70th anniversary of Korea's liberation from Japanese colonial rule, the two Koreas have a duty to use it as an opportunity to boost their relations. Regarding the North's hot and cold approach, experts say Pyongyang is hoping to press Seoul to change its North Korea policies. They add the confrontation will continue until the U.S.-South Korea joint military exercises set for March. Responding to the criticism on Sunday, South Korea's unification ministry called the North's latest threat highly regrettable and urged Pyongyang to accept Seoul's proposal for inter-Korean talks, now almost a month old. And according to reports by Seoul-based Yonhap News on Sunday, South Korean government officials had hopes of resuming inter-Korean dialogue sometime this month. But with the latest threat from the north, they now think the possibility of talks is slim. If the talks don't happen this month, it may be almost impossible for the two Koreas to organize reunions for war-separate families during Lunar New Year's holidays in mid-February. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Staying with North Korea, after the United States blamed North Korea for hacking Sony Pictures, diplomatic sources in Washington have said the U.S. might be putting Pyongyang back on its list of state sponsors of terrorism. But a new report says the chances of that are very slim. Our Connie Kim tells us why.
North Korea is not likely to find itself relisted as a state sponsor of terrorism after a new report out of the U.S. suggests that it would do more harm than good for relations with Pyongyang. The U.S. Congressional Research Service says the move would have little economic impact but would hurt international relations. The report also suggests that the North would take the move as a threat to its two-track policy of nuclear and economic development, raising the possibility of a fourth nuclear test or more long-range missile tests. Diplomatic sources in Washington began talking about the possibility of the North being relisted after the cyber attack on Sony Pictures late last year, which the U.S. blames North Korea for and Pyongyang denies having conducted. According to the report, the U.S. has never put a nation on the terror list for a cyber attack. The report also notes that putting Pyongyang back on the terror list would hamper South Korea's current efforts to improve inter-Korean relations. South Korea recently proposed high-level talks and a round of reunions for war-separated families. North Korea was designated a state sponsor of terrorism in 1987 for bombing a Korean Airlines flight, but was removed from the list by the Bush administration in 2008 for complying with efforts to verify its nuclear program. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Under government pressure to increase dividend payments, many Korean companies are increasing their payouts. Now, the problem is their corporate performances are not really improving. Our Song Ji-sun has the details.
Among foreign investors, Korean firms have a reputation for holding onto their profits instead of passing them on to shareholders. But those holding shares listed on the Korean bourse are likely to have a pleasant surprise this year. 8 out of 10 companies that have released their dividend plans for 2014 say they increased their payouts by an average of nearly 40% from 2013. They include Hyundai Motor, IT mogul NCSoft, and cigarette producer KT&G. Hyundai Motor raised its dividend payments to $2.8 per share, up 54% from the previous year, despite reporting its worst earnings in 4 years. Its affiliate Kia Motors also raised its dividend payouts by 43%. They are paying between 11% and 13% of their profits as dividend payments to shareholders, but the figures are still low compared to their global rivals, which boast as much as 30% payout ratio. Stock analysts say it is too early to say that paying higher dividends is a new trend among Korean firms, as the recent dividend increases were not based on better earnings, but on government pressure. As part of efforts to increase domestic spending, the government plans to levy an additional tax to manufacturing companies which do not use 80% of their profits in investment, dividend payments, or in wage increases over the next 3 years. The question now is whether Samsung Electronics, which accounts for some 15% of the Korean main bourse's total capitalization, will follow suit. If the tech giant does rev its dividend payouts at some 40%, its dividend payment could easily top $3 billion. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
And despite slowing growth in China, more Korean companies are eyeing China for investment options. Many Korean businessmen believe a free trade agreement between Korea and China will open up more business opportunities this year. Our Shin Se-min reports.
Korean companies' investment in China hit an 8-year high last year, even as Korea's exports to the world's second-largest market fell. The Korea International Trade Association said Korean companies spent nearly $4 billion in China to set up plants, open shops, or expand businesses in 2014, up 30% from the previous year. That brought to $60 billion the cumulative investment in China by Korean companies. The rise compares with a 39% fall in investment there by Japanese companies last year. Officials at the trade association say Korea's shipments to China, which account for about a quarter of the country's overall exports, fell for the first time in 5 years last year. But most Korean businessmen believe they will benefit hugely from a bilateral free trade agreement due to be signed this year. The nation's top tech firm, Samsung Electronics, was the largest Korean investor, pouring some $2.3 billion to build a semiconductor plant in Xi'an. Korean entrepreneurs also saw new service sector opportunities in the market with the world's largest number of consumers. Korea-owned chains of coffee stores like Cafe Bene, Tusan Place, and Man together opened more than 1,000 shops in 2014 alone. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Now, Koreans have gradually become much more adventurous when it comes to trying new beers. And with that, we've been seeing quite a rise in beer imports in recent years. And with the rising popularity of imported brands, local breweries are busy improving the quality of their beers and trying to expand into overseas markets. Here's our Kim Hyun-bin with this week's Industry Insight.
Many Koreans love a nice cold beer or two after a long day or week in the office. Their choice used to be limited to mostly Korean beer. But now, you can easily find beers from all four corners of the world, even in a regular grocery store, like this. Not too long ago, it wasn't all that common to see imported beers on store shelves in Korea. But in recent years, imports have been swelling. Foreign brands like Asahi, Heineken, and Guinness, to name but a few, are stacked high and wide. The imported beer trend started to take off in Korea in the mid-2000s and has been intensifying ever since. Top dog at the moment is Asahi. The Japanese beer has been #1 in the imported beer market in Korea for the last 4 years and continues to widen its base of loyal customers in Korea with its crisp and refreshing taste.
We wanted to differentiate the taste of our beer from our competitors, and I believe that has been appreciated by our customers. We expect sales to keep growing.
Last year, Asahi imported over 26,000 tons of beer into Korea, triple the amount it imported in 2010. Overall, beer imports to Korea topped $100 million in 2014, jumping 24% from the previous year. Korea exported around $73 million of beer, leaving the country with a deficit of almost $38.5 million last year. So why are Koreans increasingly choosing imported brands over old local favorites like Obi, Cass, and Hite?
Korean consumers are going from high alcoholic content beverages to low, so beer sales are increasing across the board. Tastes have broadened too, as more people travel and study abroad, so they become fond of the beers they tried overseas.
Feeling the heat, Korean breweries have been rolling out fresh brands that are quite the departure from their original beers.
In the case of Obi, it released 2 different brands last year and upgraded its premium Obi beer to give it a deeper taste. Local beer companies are also developing new flavors to adapt to the changing tastes of the Korean consumer.
Given the surging number of domestic and foreign brands in Korea, Korean beer makers are looking overseas to make up for their weakening sales at home. Korean breweries exported $4.5 million of beer to Iraq last year, becoming the Middle Eastern country's 3rd largest supplier. Hite's Jinlo, which began exporting to Vietnam in 1966, now ships to some 60 countries. And OB is expanding its overseas markets, including Mongolia, Hong Kong, and Australia. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
After it was confirmed that one of the two Japanese hostages held by the Islamic State has been executed, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe once again demanded the group to release Kenji Goto, the second Japanese hostage. Calling the murder of Haruna Yukawa outrageous, Abe confirmed to Japanese broadcaster NHK that the video released over the weekend that shows the decapitated body of the first Japanese victim was authentic. The Japanese leader said saving Mr. Goto's life was now Tokyo's top priority, but he said that Japan will not give in to terrorism. In the latest recording, a voice which the IS claims is Goto's reads a statement saying the Islamic State now demands the release of an Iraqi female prisoner held in Jordan instead of their previous ransom demand. Over in Athens, Greece's left-wing Syriza party has claimed a stunning victory in the country's parliamentary elections. Some analysts have called the win a political earthquake for Europe, as the party wants to renegotiate the terms of its EU bailout and wants Greece out of the Eurozone. Our Kim Ji-yoon reports.
Greece's anti-austerity Syriza party swept to a convincing victory in Sunday's snap elections, throwing the country's future in the Eurozone into question. However, it remains unclear whether the party has won enough seats to govern on its own or whether it will have to seek support from other parties. That might not be clear until Monday evening local time or even later, depending on when all the votes are counted. Outgoing Prime Minister Antonios Samaras conceded a matter of hours after exit polls showed an overwhelming win for Syriza.
The Greek people have spoken and we all respect their decision. My conscience is clear. I took over a country on the edge of catastrophe. I had to handle hot coals. Most people said we wouldn't make it, but we did, and we avoided the worst.
Samaras says austerity measures has set the foundation to pull Greece out of its fiscal crisis. But Syriza's win is expected to signal Greece leaving the Eurozone, dropping the euro, and will set up a showdown with Greece's international creditors. Party leader Alexis Tsipra's main campaign pledge was to undo many of the reforms the outgoing government carried out to keep Greece afloat.
Greek people will regain social cohesion and dignity. And the message is that our common future in Europe is not the future of austerity. It's the future of democracy, solidarity and cooperation.
Greece's debt topped $369 billion last year. Its unemployment rate stands at 26%, and a third of the population live under the poverty line. Syriza needs to win a majority of the 300 parliamentary seats to form a government on its own. Kim Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
Some say that Koreans' passion for education played a significant role in Korea's rapid industrialization in the decades after the Korean War. While the Korean education system has been hailed internationally, there are a number of areas where it's falling short of expectations. And our Ji Myung-gil sat down with Seol Hoon, chairman of the National Assembly's Education Committee, for his take on this issue.
U.S. President Barack Obama has praised Korea's fervor for education. However, many say Korea's education system is in need of reform. What do you see as the main problems with the system?
교육열은 높지만 교육 시스템도 잘 구비되어 있느냐? 그건 또 아니라고 생각합니다. 한국 교육의 시스템은 여러 가지 문제가 많이 있습니다. 특히 대학이 학벌 중심으로 되어 있는 우리 사회이기 때문에 대학이 서열화되어 있습니다. 서울대학을 정점을 해가지고 인류대학으로 쫙 되어 있고 인류대학에 들어가기 위해서 온갖 노력들을 다 합니다. 그래서 이제 사교육 문제가 엄청난 사회적 문제로 나와 있죠. 이 문제를 어떻게 극복할 것이냐, 이게 우리가 풀어야 할 교육 문제, 그리고 또 우리 나라의 문제, 이렇게 되어 있습니다.
You've emphasized improving the public education system, as private tutoring has become a major problem in Korea, with parents spending more than $17 billion on private education every year. So what needs to be done?
지금 우리가 사교육이 어느 정도 규모가 되는지 측정이 잘 안 되는 면도 있어요. 대충 공교육에 저는 그렇게 생각합니다. 공교육의 미니멈 3분의 1은 될 것이다. 공교육 예산에. 뭐 30조냐 40조냐 이런 다툼도 있어요. 그래서 그렇게 엄청난 규모의 사교육에 들어가는 비용이 줄어들고 그 사교육 비용의 일정 부분이 공교육에 투여되기만 한다면은 우리 학교 교육은 정말 정상적으로 돌아올 것이며 그리고 대통령이 교육으로서 우리 국정 운영을 제대로 하겠다는 계획을 세우면은 국민들이 따라갈 거라고 봅니다.
Let's talk about the education standards at Korea's universities and higher education. Do you think these institutions are providing quality education and why or why not?
우리나라의 이 대학들이 갖고 있는 이 조건들을 살펴보면은 서울대학만 하더라도 좋아요. 이를테면 대학 각 대학마다 대학 평가하는 내용들이 있는데 그 내용들을 보면 뭐 대체로 50위 안에 들어가는 서울대학을 대학원 중심 대학으로 바꿔놓으면은 학벌 위주의 이 우리 사회에 있는 정점이 무너지면서 이게 좀 다른 형태의 그 대학 서열화가 정리될 것 아닌가. 그리고 전국에 있는 국립대학들이 다 같이 한 틀로 묶여내는 이를테면 파리에 있는 대학들처럼 이렇게 정리를 해내면은 적어도 대학 서열화 그리고 학벌 위주 사회가 깨지는 단초는 될 것 아닌가.
What are your short and long-term goals as the chairman of the Parliamentary Committee for Education, Culture, Sports and Tourism?
단기적인 내년도 문제부터 해서 이 수능 문제를 정비해서 대학이 제대로 된 이 학생들을 뽑을 수 있게끔 시스템을 만들어주는 것이고 장기적으로는 아까 말씀드린 대로 교육을 통해서 이 대한민국을 세계 속의 대한민국을 이끌어내는 이 시스템을 찾아내는 국민 동의하에 찾아내는 이 작업을 해야 할 거 아닌가 하는 생각을 해요.
All right, in other news, Chinese authorities have implemented a measure that requires the country's video streaming websites to get licenses to show foreign films and TV series. And considering that Korean dramas and TV shows have become immensely popular in China, largely because of these websites, the new regulation is forcing Korean entertainment firms to rethink their marketing tactics. Our Son Jang-in tells us more.
This is one of the many Korean dramas that have been a huge success in China. Chinese viewers were able to watch them almost immediately after their release in Korea, but it could be a different story 2 months from now. According to a new regulation from China's media watchdog, video streaming sites will need to get publication licenses for imported films and TV series from the end of March. The regulation aims to filter out TV shows with satirical, cruel, or lewd elements, but even if they are approved, it will take at least 6 months to get the license.
All foreign dramas or movies should be registered by March 31st in order to be broadcast on video streaming sites.
Video streaming websites have been a staple provider of Korean TV dramas for Chinese fans, as they can be watched on PCs or mobile devices. Korean dramas that gained popularity through streaming services are expected to be hit the hardest. And even if they do get licensed, they'll come out at least 6 months late, prompting Korean entertainment companies to come up with a new marketing strategy. Experts here warn that illegal distribution will surge after the regulation takes effect, becoming a major threat to copyright. Several new American TV series have already been removed from Chinese video streaming sites due to their provocative contents. Son Jang-in, ARIRANG News.
Welcome back. I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Most of the precipitation has cleared up and left us with some fog and patches of mist here and there, and the sky is very clouded up, so we'll generally have a dim day today. Now, even after the rain, the temperatures remain mild. In fact, this morning was about 10 degrees higher than what we usually got in the previous years, as well as our daytime highs. However, starting tomorrow, we are expecting a cold front coming in from north, which will bring heavy amounts of snow up to 20 centimeters down on east coastal regions, as well as drops in our mild temperatures. Now, there will be ongoing precipitation going on in certain parts of regions all throughout the week, so make sure to be prepared depending on where you are. And to our readings for today, Seoul will peak up to 9 this afternoon. The southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will top higher at 11 and 14 degrees. And to other regions such as Jeju Island gets up at 11 as well. Dokdo hits down to 9, while Namgungang drops low, chilly at 2 degrees. That's all for now. I'm Michelle Park, and have a wonderful day.
All right, that brings us to the end of the program, but I'll be back with Daniel for our next newscast at 6 p.m. Korea time. Thanks for watching.